name is Stephen Davids, and he's the author of a book called An Anti-Corruption Manual for South Africa. And I guess it's something that everybody should lay their hands on. But let's find out the story behind the story. Stephen, lovely to have you with us. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Nancy, and to our readers.
And our listeners. Yes, I suppose
and listeners,
listeners and readers. In fact, they're listeners, readers and writers, I think. Stephen, why you? Who are you that you're writing an anti-corruption manual for South Africa?
Well, let me put it this way. I got an MBA from the University of Stellenbosch, and I use that for consulting. And in the process thereafter, I also worked with the Conservation International, where I worked in communities and at community workshops. And one day, a friend of mine asked me to go with him to one of his consultations. And then I told him, but you can't give people this type of material for a workshop. And then I started, let me beautify it for you. And in the process, I started research. And then I actually discovered that there's much more to corruption than I thought. And the fact of the matter is we get so excited about corruption. But if we really understand the costs of corruption, what it do to society and to the poorest and the most vulnerable people, I think then we will start to act and react. And the purpose of this book in a nutshell is, you can say, to fight back. And if people are not motivated after having read this to fight back, then I feel I failed in my purpose. Because on the one hand, the purpose is to give also people an informed way to rebel against what is going on. So not only to get excited, but to know what to do, strategies to follow. And as I say, from my experience having done workshops in communities, the focus and the readers are quite diverse. It is more, you can say, a community workshop group. And in that community workshop, I discovered that you have maybe the political leaders, the municipal managers, people from the mines, and Sophie or whatever, and students. And each one of them can learn from each other, and there's a synergy being created when they are together. And so the purpose of this book is to have that synergy that is created when everyone comes together. So in a way you can read this book on your own. There's also a book for a workshop. It was very well reviewed.
I see some of your reviewers have included no lesser people than Thabo Mbeki, Geraldine Fraser-Moleketi, Tony Leon, Sean Johnson, and the list goes on. Very, very, very interesting. But is it, when we say it's an anti-corruption manual, does that mean it's a way of dealing with it when we discover it? Or is it a way of analysing exactly what it is and how it starts and nipping that in the bud?
I will say, you see, when it says a manual, it is sort of a go-between. Because you can't read it as a fiction from start to finish. You must make it more yes, and maybe sip it as a piece of wine. It's a wonderful glass of wine, and meditate about a chapter. Because and you can also treat it as a child running into a toy shop, grabbing this thing, grabbing that thing. But the idea is that you read everything and then get that holistic perspective. And also have appreciation, because the book is actually in 3 sections. The first section deals with what is corruption, the fact that it affects people's lives, the fact that people doesn't always think about it. You give a traffic cop 20 rand for a vehicle to come through, but if that taxi crashes, there's a cost on the community, and a father dies, a breadwinner dies, a family is without. Corruption's tentacles are very, very long, and we're not just talking about
from what you're saying, we're not just talking about high-profile corruption, the sort of stuff that reaches the headlines, just low level in an ordinary domestic situation. This is going to be very difficult, but just to simplify it and to think about where you're coming from. Can you give us one reason that you think what causes corruption and one that can stop it? Just simply.
One reason that causes corruption is basically greed, because it's not people who are poor that is corrupt.
So
it is people who are in positions of power often and who have enough and they just want to have it more. The way it can, there's a lot of ways how it can stop, but this book wants basically to say, be informed. Know what you can do. There are ways and methods. We do not need to feel powerless. And that's, if we start doing something, because the focus of this book also, maybe let Auntie Sophie there somewhere. She can read it. It's very simple. And it's in a way that it's not only aimed at professionals, it's also a sort of research you can, as a community, the dream is, if this book is in the community, and everyone starts reading it, sharing it, and therefore there's a good index at the back. Oh, this you can do and that you can do.
So greed is one of the causes. I'm sure there are many more. What are one of the solutions on a very simple level?
And one of the most and the best solutions, according to Transparency International, is transparency. And the way the public protector was appointed is very good. And I hope that is a start for a lot of other things and developments in our country. But just by being transparent, that just by people having access to information and knowing what's going on, that is the most and the basic way to stop corruption.
Just lastly, do you think, I mean, it seems that, we hear more and more, increasingly we hear about corruption, maybe there are more of us in the world, I don't know. Is it infectious? I mean, do you think that corruption breeds corruption?
Unfortunately, it is. Unfortunately, it is. And the only way it's going to be stopped if the reward attached to corruption is going to be low and the cost to being corrupt is high.
Yeah, and the cost of being discovered, hopefully, is even higher. Stephen Davids, if anybody would, I know that you are from the Bato Pele Centre of Learning, but if anybody would like to get hold of the Anti-Corruption Manual for South Africa, they would do it how?
They can go to my website,
which is
bapcol.training, BOPCOL, and it's a training site, website I made myself.
.co.za?
No, just training. Bapcol.training, that is a new convention to name websites.
Okay.
You do not have a www in front or co.za or whatever.
Okay.
Just Bapcol.training.
So if you'd like to get hold of a copy of Anti-Corruption Manual for South Africa by Stephen Davids, BAPCOL, that's BAPCOL.training is the website, and you'll find all the details. BAPCOL.training. Stephen, very best of luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nancy.
You're listening to SAFM Literature, and don't forget, if you have a book that you have self-published or are planning to self-publish, let us know. Books@safm.co.za.